I asked Elia, he comes often here to the festival, and this year it's always a pleasure to be here with him. And this year he didn't have any new film to show, but I asked him to choose a film and to talk a little bit about it. And I'd like to know, why did you choose Dark Water? And because he told me I'd be surprised with the choice, and I was a little bit surprised. I didn't have seen the film before. It's the first time. And even I know well the work of Todd Haynes. But please tell me, why did you choose this film to talk about?
Yeah, why the hell, not why. Yes, it's true that it's surprising also to me.
Mais perto. Closer.
Okay. It's maybe on a whim, but there was a lot to do with it. Normally, if, I should be doing what my pretentious position should be, which is to bring, for example, Tokyo Story, which is Ozu, which is maybe the film why I started to make films, which is a black and white, and with all the rigor of cinema. I remember once I was asked to do this in Canada, and they reprinted Pickpocket by Bresson. And I had to stand and say why, and I of course gave all the cinematic terminology, analyzing cinematically how the structure of the film is, plus because of because I chose it because of a personal reason, and that I was a petty thief at some point in my life. This, I think, had something to do with that moment, and I like the films of this director, even though I have nothing to do stylistically with his cinematic language. I think the moment of solitude that I had, and by the way, I didn't watch it on the cinema, I watched it on television by accident, got me thinking about a cinematic terminology that has nothing to do with cinematography. And that is about how certain people have this kind of moral, ethical attitude. They are somehow committed to well-intentioned. They want to do good. They want to educate us. They are sincere, like this director. And it struck me that, in fact, the director's character is infused in all of his directing. That is, if you look at the main character, for example, he has this kind of innocence. He's a good person. He wants to do good. And despite the, let's say, semi-classical narrative, this is an American film, but with an edge. Let's put it that way. It's like an independent film, but that has some commercial value. I found it interesting to be watching it exactly at this moment, where it's not a question of Dupont. It is a question of a whole global situation. Why I chose it? I think because the central theme of this sort of film is an absolutely universal question, not necessarily to do with cinematography, and it's the question of humiliation. The humiliation of humanity at this moment of history. And I think this is really why I chose it. And that I can talk about forever, because not only us as persons be humiliated from people who are humiliating us, but there's national humiliation. There are people, a whole nation being occupied and put on its knees and being humiliated. I mean, humiliation is ruling, and I think it's synchronized also with this kind of global situation with all these forces that are insulting us as persons and telling us what to do and putting us on our knees. This film has that.
Yeah, I can understand, and I can understand that, it's something that, in a way, itself is, you himself, when you want to do a film, everything you have to fight, everything, no one will believe, I know the last movie when you started, no one will believe it that you could do it. It was 5 years of fight, I think, something like that. Even like Citizen, that is something that it's impossible in that country, and this is humiliation is all the time. And if in one point a small victory is something that at least give us strength to go on. I think it's a little bit of that I think this film is important.
I think this is a great point you're saying, and the thing is, because humiliation is on so many levels, that the only way we many times find ourselves redeemed from being humiliated is when we take vengeance. So we have a little euphoric moment of saying, well, I got my self-respect back. I got my pride back. And I think at this moment in my life, I see that this issue is not really something that anybody deals with, mostly because we are ashamed to deal with us being insulted. We don't talk about, we try to evade the numerous times that somebody rejected us and belittled us, dismissed us, somehow insinuated that we are of no importance. And this is related to this film, personal and global. In other words, I'm not talking about just myself, but also including myself. I felt this moment is something that does not, it never really shows as a central discussion of any sort, mostly because we like to put it on the side, we like to repress it. It's embarrassing to talk about it, and most of all because we always prolong the period that we wanted to, that awaits the moment of revenge. And unfortunately, and I'm saying it even unfortunately, we cannot always take revenge. It doesn't work out. We just keep being insulted. And the only way we can manage it is by telling ourselves, by talking to ourselves, even not to other people, by talking to ourselves out of it in positive terms. In other words, positive meaning taking walks, meaning doing meditation, meaning giving it some kind of rational explanation. The fact is, this is what tied me when I was watching the film. So it's not just the content of the film, nor its cinematographic language. It's what occurred to me at the moment I was watching the film. And I thought to myself, this is why not bring this into a discussion for a change rather than, I come with, let's say, giving you some kind of black and white from, 1905 and starting to be rhetoric.
It's something that talks about us every, we are not, what us in this world, these terrible, systems where we are, despised all the time in everything we do, and there is someone in the film that is as well not only the lawyer but the president of the company of lawyers. That is something that himself is someone that resists to all the things and goes until the end. That is but
he humiliates all the time.
all the others that are
And that tells us something also about people who humiliate even though they are humiliated. So something about humanity here that really raises a question mark.
Very strong, this. And I saw it for the first time, and it's I'm still something that stays with me. Like you said, it's not my cinematograph. In terms of cinema, pure cinema, is not the kind of film that I'm close to, But in terms of what you say, the stories and the way that the story goes, and how it goes, I think it's a very strong movie. And be careful, all of us will have this PFO C8 with us. You have to measure that. But I think it's something that, for example, it was going to be very. I know if one day we'll examine exactly what's going on with this COVID thing. I don't know what's going on. What they are. It's true. The vaccination is in a way stopping the deaths, but what are they putting in us? Because it's genetic. We'll never know. Maybe in how billions they are being made by the pharmaceutics and all this. This is kind of an explanation that maybe in 10 or 15 years we'll know something. But
you and I are lucky because we're old. Huh? We're old, so we're lucky.
We are old, but for young people, I can understand that they have to put some questions about that because they are putting something that they are touching the ADN, and we never know what can be in 10 or 15 years. For us, it's true. I didn't have any doubts of being vaccinated. I'm 71 years, if at least I live and some more without trapping this thing. But what is going on is something that I don't know, and this is an example. We'll never know for the next years what exactly, if you could do it other way, if you do it this way, if there is a medicament that could be, and everything, things that we'll never know, because the situation of how everything works in this neoliberal world, it's worse than it was in the 80s and in the 70s. It's worse. I don't think that in the States, this moment, any agency could go until the end in a story like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm too pessimistic, but I think the things are not right.
Yeah, I mean, I think these days not to be pessimistic and to have hope becomes like a forced responsibility that we have to have. So we just keep on hoping because really we have no other choice if you think about it. And then when you think about all these people that are meeting in Glasgow, how much money they are making, from all the vaccines, somehow you don't want to insult a denial or somebody who has, some kind of hesitation about the vaccination. I rather open the door to hear only because I know that those who are actually saying all this stuff about vaccination from the top are actually making so much money. So in 20 years from now, it will be too late, and it will be just maybe another, flashback like with this one.
This one,
yes.
Exactly. In 20 years, maybe we'll have a flashback, and maybe if you are lucky, we can see it.
Yeah. Hi. In the beginning of the talk, you mentioned European films and Tokyo Story, and yet you chose an American film. What other American films do you like and why?
I mean, this is like asking to spend here at least another 6 or 7 hours and going into memory lane. I mean, I probably have a very long list of, let's say, less contemporary filmmakers than the classical, old filmmakers. So there's quite a lot of names that could be listed, but I think we all know them and we have all seen them, just like when we talk about, other, other countries, like when we say Japan, France, and the filmmakers that, when you watch films, you go and watch these filmmakers. It's like going to the museum and watching all these periods of classical painters and then, more modern paintings. So the list is very long. He wouldn't, the difference between saying Cassavetes and this filmmaker is a discussion by itself. Because it's not like I trash this kind of filmmaking. I think this is a very good filmmaker. I respect so much that he has this kind of, how should I say it, hearty sort of filmmaking. He's all heart. He comes out, and all of his films have this,
Yes, Todd Haynes' movie, yes.
And I am not just that person that wants to see, Fassbinder and Bergman. I am this person that likes to see also endearing films, and films that have a story with meaning, even if this meaning sometimes has to be taken into script narrative that would have to be appealing in order for more tickets, or using also some names, etc., which I kind of don't mind, to be frank. I'm not somebody against this idea if it fulfills some kind of. My films are not at all that way. They don't make money, and ironically, they're expensive, and they don't have this good intention, and they have something, I would say, a little bit sometimes, shall I say, a little harder to reach in some respect. They're not experimental at all, but they are less with this kind of sentiment and more with melancholy and burlesque. So it's completely another way of looking at the world, actually. We're not different from the way we look at the world. I mean, we probably agree on a million things. It's just the way we treat the cinematography. We're quite very different. But there's tons of filmmakers. I don't want to start listing them. I mean, a lot of filmmakers, and American filmmakers who I so much learned from, and I think now that we're at it, I'm with Paulo, I have to tell you that, for example, I'm a huge sucker for Westerns. And I bought a huge projection in the house, actually because of you. I saw Western in your place with a projector, and I decided I have to do that. So, I mean, some of these Westerns I really find extraordinary films, and I learn from them. I watch them and watch them again, and I always find something that I feel that something seeps into me that needed to be had somehow. So it's like when you drink something healthy, and when you have the sip, you think, but this is really good for me. It feels very good. I have the same feeling with Western. It just makes me feel that I'm learning something good. So my world is not centered on one kind of filmmaking, and the more I age, the more I feel that there is so much pleasure in this kind of diversification.
Okay, but just to tell that now he's trying to learn how to ride a horse, because
you're going to teach me. All right,
thank you very much, and thank you for being here.